Hello, beautiful mamas, and welcome back to the Balanced Mama Project Radio, where we talk all things life, function, and thriving in parenthood. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Desai, a maternal health occupational therapist, and today we're going to dive into a topic that so many parents are facing head on right now with travel, especially with the holidays. And honestly, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I love traveling and I honestly love traveling with my two babies, my 2-year-old and my now 9-month-old. So, we're going to break this down into just traveling, especially holiday traveling with a toddler for this episode. Because the infant portion is a lot different than the toddler, because we all know toddlers are little feral tyrant dictators, whatever you want to call them. So it's a totally different ballgame. So planes, airport meltdowns, trains, road trips, the car seat battles, the overstimulation, the disrupted naps, and meal times, and lots of snacks that somehow end up everywhere except in their mouths. And pretty much the feeling of why did we think this was going to be a good idea? And why did we not think through this before? Um, and for you first time parents, I just want you to know that this goes through my head every time we travel. And we travel pretty frequently via car rides, planes, all of that. And to this day, I still think about why did I not think this through? Why did we think this was going to be a good idea? But from an OT lens, traveling with a toddler is such a rich experience with sensory needs, routines, regulation strategies, and then opportunities for co regulation. So, today we'll break down what actually makes travel hard for toddlers, which then in turn makes travel hard for us. And I'm going to give you guys a practical plan to support them and obviously yourself um, through it to ensure that it goes as smoothly as possible with the little dictator by your side. So let's call it like it is. Toddlers thrive on predictability, movement, sensory input, and holiday travel is basically disrupting all three. So we're teaching our kiddos to be, to develop this routine, to develop habits, and now we're taking them out of that exact environment and exact thing that we are trying to instill in them, and we're throwing them for a loop, and our little toddlers' brains cannot handle that. So basically, here's what's happening. There's sensory overload. There's airport crowds. There's just crowds everywhere you go. There's loud announcements. There's bright lights, unfamiliar smells. It's a lot of sensory input. Just think about how overstimulated you could get. Um, you know, rushing to the gate, having to like unpack your bag to get through security. They're waiting through all this, right? Like your bag gets pulled out, they're waiting through this, they're throwing tantrums because they're getting overstimulated likely. This is all new for them too. So some toddlers can, get really overstimulated. And then others can be understimulated and they really seek that movement, that input. Um, they're also the ones that you'll see like jumping off chairs and bouncing off of things because they're trying to get that stimulation as well. There's also loss of control. So they're strapped, they're buckled, they're carried, they're rushed, they're moved from place to place, they're told to wait. Basically, you're taking away their autonomy. The very little autonomy that they do have at that age, you're taking it away. And to them, that feels like such a big deal. So that's when some of these tantrums start as well. Um, like I talked about before a little bit, you're disrupting their entire routine. So traveling throws their sleep, their meals, their nap, and all that timing off, all the anchors that help toddlers feel regulated and safe. So now they're completely disrupted. So when you understand why travel feels hard, you can support their bodies and brains compassionately instead of reacting with frustration. And trust me, it's very, very um, easy to want to react with frustration, but that just kind of escalates it for both of you guys, right? So now you're becoming really charged and dysregulated. They're dysregulated, and two dysregulated people cannot help with self-regulation. So one of you has to be regulated, and you as the parent are the one that needs to learn to regulate because they're that's why it's called co-regulation. They're waiting for you to help regulate them because these are skills that they are learning. So the other thing is there's, you know, sitting expectations. When you're going on these flights, there's long periods without movement that challenge their natural need for proprioception and that vestibular input. So now if they're sitting on a flight for like even like 2-3 hours, that's a lot for them. They're used to moving every, every so often, every couple of minutes, every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, however often your child feels the need to move. Now they're constrained in the seat. There's so much stimulation going on, the lights, the looking outside at all the airlines take off, or on the train where there's people talking, you're, looking out the window and it's just like out the window. So you're stimulating them, but they're not getting that movement in that they might crave. Also, there's can be a factor of being socially overwhelmed. When you're traveling for the holidays, it's more than likely that, you're going to a gathering, you're going somewhere where they're not familiar with the environment, there's new family members, and there's that constant form of interaction. And kids, especially toddlers, have a hard time with that. This is all new to them. So when you understand this, it decreases your frustration and increases your compassion, for both you and your baby or your kid. And that's one of the key things to remember with traveling with a kiddo. And um, if you can leave your house without fighting with your spouse, that is pretty darn amazing to go on this wonderful vacation that you're going on. I will tell you, my husband and I have this argument all the time. I hate checking bags in because I have this like ever standing fear that everything's gonna get lost and then I'm not gonna have anything that I need. Like, I'm not gonna have my car seat. I'm not gonna have my travel crib. I'm not gonna have like the extra 85 pairs of underwear that I brought for my 3-day trip. I'm gonna lose all their diapers because, there's never somewhere to buy diapers because in other countries, of course, they don't use diapers, right? I know it's a little wild, but these are like things that we argue about because my husband's like, just check it in. Less stuff we have to carry on. And there's been a compromise now. We don't check in a stroller. I'm like, no, we're gonna put that overhead. We check in the car seat for the infant, but for the toddler, we actually bring our car seat on the flight because he does really well in a car seat for sleeping, and that helps us. So we learned that with our first travel to Atlanta. It was a short flight, and we're like, you know what, let's try this because we didn't want him kicking the chair in the person in front of us. And honestly, it worked really well. And he sleeps really well in the car seat in the car. So we're like, let's try it on the flight. And it worked. So now we carry that on with us. And honestly, it's been very helpful. So that's a little tip if you don't want your kid to kick the seat in front of you. And the car seat could potentially help with that. We take his shoes off, and, put him into the car seat. Obviously, as your kid gets taller and taller, it probably won't work anymore. But for now, it's working for us. So that's really helpful. All right. So now let's talk about what I call the travel readiness triangle. It consists of the three parts that we talked about. I'm just going to dive a little bit more into them. So the first is sensory needs, the second is emotional regulation, and the third is occupational routines. So these are the three areas that we can support to make your holiday travel bearable. So it's sensory needs. Think about your toddler's baseline. How does your toddler best regulate? Do they need movement? Do they need deep pressure? Do they need oral input? Um, do they want a quiet, predictable activity? So how much movement are they seeking? Are they the ones that are just constantly on the move, jumping, running around everywhere? Are they ones that kind of, don't need as much activity, but they need more of that oral input? So they might need some teethers. They might need something like to put in their mouth to help them regulate. Um, are they somebody that needs a lot of deep pressure? Do they need like that heavy, um, enjoy like heavy work? Do they like pushing, pulling, throwing things? Do they get overwhelmed with noise? These are all things that, get significantly magnified when you travel. So it's important that you know these kind of basic things that your toddler may need to help them on that flight. Also, there's emotional regulation, right? So now we've covered the sensory needs. And like I said before, for emotional regulations, toddlers co-regulate with us. So basically, if we're stressed, rushing, dysregulated, they can feel it, which means if you can slow down, breathe, take the pressure off of your perfect behavior, things go a lot smoother. There's really no such thing as perfect behavior, right? If we're not, if we can't have perfect behavior, how can we expect our toddler to have perfect behavior? And ultimately, perfect behavior is just, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, nobody's perfect, right? And your behavior is never going to be perfect either. We all get frustrated. We all get stressed out. We all, get a little anxious here and there about things, some more than others. We also have just a million different things running through our head. So that's why it's important we take a step back and slow down. And that can really rub off on our toddler. So my tip as an occupational therapist is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. You need to protect your peace. Those are words that I live by, um, especially when traveling. And then the third thing is routines. So there's no way that your full routine that you do at home is going to survive travel. It's just not a thing. So the first thing you want to do is just let it go and come to terms with the fact that your current routine is going to need to be um, shortened, changed. Things might have to go out the window. And that's just how it is with travel, right? But what you want to do is you want to have small rituals and cues that can survive travel. So the small rituals can do wonders, and we'll dive a little deeper into that in a few minutes. So here are some strategies for pre-travel that you can utilize. The number one travel tool is your regulation. Like I said before, lower your expectations, let go of that perfection, slowing your pace intentionally, leave buffer time into the day, and then doing a few parasympathetic warm ups. So, like slow exhales, body scans, or honestly, just even 5 minutes of quiet if you can find it. And so, I'm going to take it back to that leaving buffer time in your day. So, where were we flying out? I think it was Dallas or Dulles. I can't remember exactly which airport, maybe Atlanta, one of the big ones. And my husband and I were like, oh, we'll leave like 2 hours before. So we get there an hour and a half ahead. So we still have enough time to do everything. We got there about an hour and 20 minutes ahead. Normally, if it's you two, that's like way more than enough time. Or if it's you and an infant, that's likely more than enough time. However, with a toddler, not enough time. And we learned that the hard way. So then our return flight, we made sure we got there 2 hours ahead. So when we got there, we're like, okay, you know what we'll do? We'll stop by the bathroom, we'll change the diaper, both of their diapers, we'll get the older one food, we'll pack it in the bag, and my husband and the toddler will board first. And while I'm doing the diaper change and getting the food, or vice versa, the other parent will take the toddler, walk around, do all that. So, um, we missed the first shuttle, tram, people mover kind of thing to take us to our gate. The gate was like a mile away. The toddler didn't want to sit um in the stroller. He wanted to push all the buttons on the elevator, so he just wanted to go up and down like 50 million times. And there's only so many times you can let him go up and down without somebody getting pissed off. So I wrangled him into the stroller and we start going. We have this car seat. We just have a crap ton of stuff because again, me don't like checking things in. My husband's like, why am I carrying all this? Fair, fair. He is carrying most of it, but I was also carrying stuff. So, um, you know, carabiners are your friends when you're traveling. But so yeah, so anyway, long story short, we get there and I realize, oh crap, they're boarding. So I quickly changed the toddler's diaper like right there at the terminal. I didn't at the gate, I didn't have a chance to take him to the bathroom. I didn't have a chance to take the infant to the bathroom, so I changed his diaper right there. My husband started boarding with our toddler while I let the infant like move around and, just get all his jitters out as well. Because at least the older one got to walk through the terminal. He got to, my husband took him on the up and down the escalator. They went to another gate to get food. Um, so he got to do all that while we were on our way to our gate. So he got the movement in, but the younger one didn't. So I stayed back and let them do that. And I was the last one to board the flight. So, you know, not long story short, but keep the buffer because you're going to need it and you don't realize until you're in that position and you're like, crap, probably should have left a little bit more time to, do all these things. All right, going back to carrying stuff on the plane. Create a sensory smart carry-on. So what we started doing with our toddler is we actually gave him his own little backpack. It's very small. It's like this big. And we put some snacks in there and I put some fun activities in there for him. Um, and then a one pair of clothes to change for him, which again, super important because as soon as we strapped him into his um stroller, he wound up having a blowout because I think the stroller belt may have been a little too snug on his belly and it leaked all through his pants. So I'm glad I had packed extra. So, pro tip, pack extra clothes for you, for them, for everybody. So, when you're packing that bag, that carry on for them, pack based on your toddler sensory profile. So, you want to take snacks that take effort to chew. That's proprioception. You want them to take their time. You want them to work hard. Obviously, if it's a struggle for your child, you don't want to do that, but you want to pick snacks that are their favorite and that are going to give them that proprioception to calm them down a little bit. Crayons, stickers, the Water Wow books are amazing. It keeps them entertained for a long time and it works on them being preoccupied. Also, you want to do fidget toys or the poppets. The ones that are a really big hit are the suction cup ones that you can either put on the window of the flight, you can put it on the screen in front of you. My infant does love these more than the toddler does now, but the 2-year-old did take it and start spinning it, and he was having a blast with them too because they do have that little pop part to them. So toys like that, a weighted stuffed animal or a small blanket if your kiddo's into that. Toddler headphones for anybody who's like noise sensitive because that can really help drown out some of that extra stimulation and help calm them. Also, like jewelry or silicone straws to help for those who need that oral input in their mouth. As the silicone straws are awesome. The jewelry is great because it attaches to their body, so you don't have to worry about them dropping it, which is also a pain in the butt because then now you're losing the stuff, and airplane floors are kind of gross. So, um, you know, the jewelry could work. And then, like I talked about before, we're going to talk a little bit about the anchors. So, you want to protect your routine anchors. And these are what we call 2 to 3 rituals that travel is not going to change. So your bedtime song, the same lovey that you can bring on to the flight, or your little stuffed animal, whatever it is that they use, the same mealtime phrase, the same nap time cue. So, for example, if you tell them, "Hey, it's time to rest your body," it's easy. It's something that you can continue to use during your travels, whether it's on the airplane, whether it's at the hotel, whether it's at a family member's house. These are the kind of things that you want to keep consistent because they are easy to keep consistent. And like I said before, toddlers don't need sameness. They need predictable touch points, routines. So even though you're not using the same, step-by-step routine that you do at home, you have these touch points that you can use to help bring that part of your routine in. Another thing that I, as an OT, absolutely love is we do a lot of pre-teaching. So we'll pre-teach travel through play. I did this with my both my kids. I do it a lot. And it seems to be sticking with the toddler now that he's a little bit older. It was funny. He went to daycare the morning that we were flying out because I'm like, okay, well, we need to pack still. I'm a last minute packer. Doesn't matter if I have two kids. Doesn't matter. I still pack last minute, shoving stuff into the bag as my husband's like packing the car. Um, so he went to school that day, and I went to go pick him up, and his teacher was like, "Rob's been talking about going on a plane all day today." He told them that he's going to be sitting on an airline. He calls it an airline, not an airplane. He's going to be sitting on an airline, and he is going to fly in the clouds to Mexico. And it was the cutest thing ever. And I was just like, it's working. So, what we would do is we would role play airport check-in with some stuffed animals. I would tell him, this is how you go through security. Sometimes they pull your stuff out and then they put it through a machine and they have to scan it. Or sometimes they might make you take your hands out and then they might rub some paper on it. So we did things like that. You can practice wearing headphones. My kids don't like headphones, so I haven't truly practiced that with them yet. But headphones aren't the most comfortable, so a lot of kids will kind of push them off their head, things like that. So you can practice wearing those. You can show them pictures, videos of airports or airplanes. We did a lot of that. I actually scrolled back to pictures from when he was little, and I showed him, like, look, you were sitting on on an airplane seat, and look, you can open and close the window. You can look outside and see not trains. You can look outside and see other planes. There's so many different ways that you can show pictures, videos, YouTube, just regular pictures. And then one of the other things I really love is reading a book about travel. So you can read them books like that go through the steps of going to the airport. You can read to them about different trains that you can sit on. Sometimes we'll just actually stand there and watch the train, and that way they get a better idea of what it's like. And this is going to shift your travel from like this chaotic surprise, like, what is going on? Where are you taking me? I don't understand what this is. Like, I'm used to sitting in a car, going to school, going to the park, coming back, walking to my house, coming back into my house, as opposed to this like just totally unfamiliar environment now that you've put me in. So what it does, like I said, it shifts that travel from that chaotic surprise to a more familiar sequence. And that helps you all in the long run. So what are some strategies as an occupational therapist that I recommend during travel, whether it's plane, cars, or trains? On the plane, think about movement before boarding. And I talked about that a little bit earlier, how we had my 2-year-old walk through the terminal for parts of it. Parts I'm like, okay, you got to get in the stroller now because we're running late. But again, if you build in that buffer time, that gives them the opportunity to get some of that like aggression, some of that restlessness out. So jump, stomp, do wall push-ups, do marches, go up and down the escalator 50 million times if you're okay with that. And then think of a sensory sandwich. So you want movement, then you want a calm activity, and then you want a snack. So use your environment. So window shades to help with visual control, Seatbelt buckles really are great for their fine motor curiosity. And then the seat back tray, you can use it to trap, draw, small activities. Another thing is a snackle box, which a lot of kids love because they get to spin it around and see what's in there, eat their snacks. And then you can also use those, screens on the windows to, again, stick like suction cup toys on there. You can use it to have like those little window decals that are easy to peel, like the jelly kind. All of that stuff you can use your environment for to keep them entertained. So I'm sure your question is, what if they're melting down regardless? So you want to try you could try some body-based strategies. So give them really firm hugs, do some hand over hand on the back rubs, do deep pressure to the shoulders, soft humming, or you can put them in a carrier for some vestibular input through rocking. Again, there's a common misconception that toddlers should not be in a carrier. That's not true. There's a lot of carriers that support toddlers and can support you in helping calm them as well, if that's something that you like to do. A lot of the other stuff that you can do, and I do this often, is I'll squeeze his legs. He really likes that. So you just got to find what your kiddo enjoys and helps calm them. Mine is squeezing like his calves and kind of just like singing to him, and that he goes to sleep in like minutes probably. Okay, so what if you're going by car? So you want to plan your stops based on their sensory needs and not their mileage. See how they're feeling. And that's one of the perks about going by car, right? Like you own the situation, you can stop as needed, you can continue to go as needed. Um, Originally when the babies were younger, we would actually drive at night because it would just be helpful because it helped with their nighttime sleep. So we would feed them, bathe them, and put them directly into the car seat, and then we would go on our drive. This past Thanksgiving was actually the first time that we did a morning drive, and it was only a 3.5 hour drive. It did turn into a 4 hour drive because we stopped and let them run around for a little bit, but honestly, it was great. They got to sleep in their own bed the night before. They woke up, ate breakfast, and we were out of the house by 8:30, 9 o'clock, which was an hour later than we wanted to leave, but not horrible all in all. And they did really well on the drive. So what we did was we planned our stop based on, okay, these kids they need to get out and move. Like they're just not having it. We got to get them out. So, it may have been that we needed to take more breaks, but we got lucky and we only needed that one. So you want to give them heavy work. Also, you could give them heavy work activities before, restarting. So push against your hands, do a pretend tug of war. Again, like carrying that mini backpack that I was talking about. That's a little bit harder on the car rides if you have to like dig through stuff, but if it's readily accessible to you, we put his little backpack on him and we walked into the service station to get some stuff, go to the bathroom, and he was like having the time of his life. And then the other stuff you can do is snack pacing. So get some chewy, crunchy food to maintain that regulation. Also consider alternating stimulating and calming toys. So with my toddler right now, the drawing pad with that little stylus attachment is like a huge hit. It entertained him for like an hour. He just like draws and then presses a little button to clear, draws and then presses a little button to clear. He lost the stylus, so I found like a random Barbie comb in my car. So I gave him that. So now he's not only obsessed with the drawing pad, he's obsessed with using the Barbie comb to draw on that instead of the stylus that he lost. All right. So I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff here. Let's talk about trains next. So trains are actually super toddler friendly. They're the perfect amount of rhythmic vestibular input. They let you walk up and down the aisle when it's allowed, and you can create a visual schedule for longer rides. So honestly, I think traveling by train with kids is also it's a lot of fun, right? They look out the window. It's a different experience for them as well. So, all right. And the next part is definitely a harder one for family travels. It's navigating family visits. Most times, like I said earlier, when you're traveling during the holidays, it's usually to see family or friends or, a completely new environment for your baby. So they can be really, really overwhelming, these holiday gatherings for toddlers. So you want to have a setup done for them. So one, you can create a sensory retreat, and that can be a quiet corner or like a room with some books, some familiar toys, their favorite lovey stuffed animal or blanket, and then again the noise canceling headphones if that's something that you need. You can also use a sound machine if you don't want to use those headphones. And that can really help them drown out some of that noise and learn how to and regulate again to become a little bit more comfortable in that environment. When you start seeing, there's signs that, okay, they're about to lose it. They're about to throw a tantrum. They're just very overstimulated and they need a little bit of quiet time. And you can ask them like, do you feel like you want to go sit down for a little bit? Do you feel I wouldn't use the word overwhelmed, but does your body feel fidgety? Things like that. You can ask them different in the way that your toddler would respond to you at home, because obviously everybody's a little different. And that's when you can take them to that quote unquote sensory retreat that we're talking about. And then the other thing is people get really excited, right? When they see kids, babies, they forget how little it takes for them to like lose it. And they need you there to support them. So one of the things you can do is just kind of have, just prep your relatives with some scripts. So one of the things that I like to say is he needs some space right now. He'll warm up soon, but this is all kind of new for him. So he's getting a little overwhelmed. And I, for one, can say that when my toddler gets overwhelmed, I get overwhelmed. And I also want to go sit in a corner and just calm myself down. So I kind of like when I have to take my toddler into that sensory space, because I also get to sit down and enjoy that sensory space. So that's one of the script cues you can use. Something else you can also say is, we're trying to protect her routine, so we're going to step away for a little bit. Or another one is, what do I use? Sometimes I'll be like, he's not ready to say hi yet. And then I'll let him know, like, hey, if you want to wave, you can wave too, or give a fist bump or a high five. And one of the things that's really hard, and I think it's becoming a little bit easier with like the millennial generation and their kids, is us saying like, hey, if you don't want to give a hug, you don't have to give a hug. One, obviously, autonomy, protecting your body, but also giving you that choice to be like, okay, well, I don't want to be touched, so please don't touch me. I'll give you a high five if I'm ready. I'll give you a fist bump if I'm ready. Or if I'm not, then I'm just going to stand close to my parents. And when I am ready and feel more comfortable with you, I'll go ahead and say hi to you. So those are, just some of the things that you can say. There's so many more, but I'm not going to dive into all of them right now. Again, there's also maintaining the anchors that I had talked about. And this one's super important. And that's why I keep kind of bringing it up. It's just something that's going to keep you all sane in the long run. So keeping the same bedtime song, keeping the same nap time cue, keeping their lovey, their first thing in the morning routine. So if that includes get up, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, and then have breakfast, those small consistencies create a big, big regulation, and they work really well for regulation. Okay, so what do you do when things go sideways and toddlers have big feelings because they a million trillion percent, well, it's unavoidable. You want to reframe the situation, right? So just think about it this way. Behavior is communication. Meltdowns do not equal manipulation. And your kiddo is dysregulated, not disobedient. So try lowering your voice instead of raising it. Short sentences. So things like, I'm here, you're safe, you got this. Things that they can understand. Very short, simple sentences. Movement reset if possible. Again, that's, giving them the opportunity to move or not move, whichever it is that works for them. Deep pressure touch. And then you yourself taking a parenting break if it's possible. If your kid feels comfortable with their grandparents, their aunt, their uncle, your significant other, and you need to calm down, go ahead and take that break, because like I said again, they're looking up to you to co-regulate. So if you can't regulate yourself, you are not going to regulate your child, and it's just going to be a disaster. Again, I'll give you a few little like co-regulation scripts, I guess you could call them. You can say things like, your body is having big feelings. You can describe the emotion too if you want. Your body is feeling angry. Your body is feeling sad. Things like that, that can help them understand. You can say, I won't rush you. And then let's breathe together. Sometimes what I do, I forget what I think it's called Dandelion. I don't remember. But there's a book that my son really loves, and it's about Jonah and this one magical dandelion. So we use that. I'll be like, okay, now close your eyes, make a wish, and blow hard. Take a deep breath in and blow hard. So he associates that. But again, you're using that strategy. You're just using the book and the things that he likes about the book to help him regulate. And it helps you regulate. Again, you regulating during traveling is probably the most important thing, because you will lose your mind. Your kid will piss you off. You will have big feelings too, except you are an adult, and um, you know, you want to regulate yourself, and you have the skills and the tools to regulate yourself. And I hope I was able to help you out with giving you some more tools to help regulate you and your babies. So in closing, just remember, traveling with a toddler during the holidays is not about perfection. It's about supporting their tiny little nervous system through big transitions. So when we understand the sensory needs, we protect their routines, and we stay regulated ourselves, everything goes much, much smoother. So just remember, you got this. You're doing so much better than you think. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a review. Also, I'll drop a link to our Etsy shop where you can find a check-off packing list for your toddler to help things go way smoother, because we all know packing for kids can really take it out of you, especially if you're a last minute packer like myself, who is like, where did I put this? Oh my God, do I need this? Did I pack this? So that can definitely help you out. Also, go ahead and give us a follow on our Instagram, where we'll give you a lot more tips, tricks, and all of that kind of stuff at balanced.mama.project. You can also listen to our podcast on both YouTube and Spotify. And until next time, I'm Dr. Lisa Desai, your mental health OT, and I will see you in the next episode. So stay balanced, mamas.